What is clearly a scam but is so normalized people don't notice? Story 1. The Verizon $1 scam. Verizon tackled on a $1 fee onto 8% of their customers' bills each month, so over the year they did it to every customer, about 150 million. The rationale was 50% wouldn't notice and just pay the charge or would notice and wouldn't spend any time fighting a $1 charge. 50% would notice the charge and call it to have it removed. Of those, 35% would get frustrated while on the call and give up. This added approximately $120 million to the bottom line each year, 3 total, until caught. Once caught, they paid a $25 million fine. That's actually a really smart idea. Illegal, but smart. Story 2. Planned obsolescence, where products are deliberately designed to have a defect or worse performance shortly after the warranty has expired, using inferior materials and critical components, like using soft metal screws or cheap plastic instead of metal in stress-bearing parts. Companies know how long these components on average use last, so they can strategically place them, designing the product so that components that often need replacing cannot be replaced by just anyone. An example is that a lot of products now have batteries that you cannot replace yourself anymore. Sometimes they're even so designed that even independent repair shops will have a hard time replacing these components. That is not only phones, but can be any electronic product. Story 3. I don't know if anyone remembers power balance bracelets from the early 2000s. A lot of celebrities and athletes advertised for them, and they claim to improve your balance and overall health. Well, being a rubber bracelet made in a factory, it was all nonsense. They still sold millions of units before shutting down. A new company owns them now and you can still buy them. Story 4. Paying for cable TV. The whole idea of paying was to create a revenue stream separate from that of marketing. There are a few out there, HBO I think, but generally we pay to access the content and still have to spend 20% of the time sitting through commercials. Then streaming came in, and we were free of advertisements again, for a bit. Now YouTube has tons of ads and other streaming services are talking about adding ads as well. Story 5. Annual college tuition increases. Why aren't they held to a competitive pricing model as opposed to having to take out a mortgage to go to school? Everyone wants to talk about the government paying for college education, but there is no conversation on why is it that expensive anyway, especially when some universities have endowments in the billions that just the interest in those funds could literally pay the tuition for everyone that goes through the door. Not only does tuition go up every semester, but the full ride financial aid packages are 90% loans by the last semester. Story 6. Social media. From their happy beginnings, they're now mostly a funnel used to ram as many advertisements into your mind as inhumanely possible. Sponsored posts, every third or fourth item. I see you. IG, FB, Red, etc. That's not even mentioning the extensive filtering networks that curates the information you get to see when you're looking for something. Quote-unquote curated information is just a nice expression for you being conditioned to form certain opinions and buy more stuff. Social media grooms minds. Many of you quoted the old saying, when the product is free, you are the product. The earliest attribution that I could find was to an artist named Richard Serra in 1973. To this, I could add, there is no such thing as a free lunch. Building and running the internet is not free. In fact, several sources state that the internet consumes over 10% of the global electricity supply. Let that sink in for a bit. Using 10% of the global electricity supply is equivalent to running about half the USA, or Germany plus Canada plus South Korea plus France plus UK plus Italy. Put another way, 10% of global carbon dioxide emissions from electricity generation are due to running the internet. If we estimate that, 50% of internet activity consists of sending around advertising and spam. We have to ask ourselves, is that really worth spending 5% of the world's entire electricity supply on? Or would it not be better to dial that fluff way back and start charging users a fair fee? Speaking for myself, I believe that the internet is an invaluable addition to our lives, and I would be willing to pay a fair and transparent fee for an ad-free, tracker-free, spam-free, bot-free internet experience. Certainly, if that means that we will also save 5% of the world's global electricity. Note that I'm not saying the internet should be censored, far from it. Of course, designing and implementing something like that will be very difficult. I think we will need to look to the Europeans for innovations in this space. I also learned that my ad blocking settings were overdue for a refresh. I found that on my iOS, iPhone, and iPad. In particular, it is hard to find effective ad blockers. This is due to the fact that Apple does not allow browsers other than Safari on iOS. The Firefoxes and Chromes you download on those devices are simply copies of Safari with a different jacket slapped onto it, for which Mozilla and Google pay Apple a pretty penny, no doubt. This means that spectacularly effective open-source ad blockers that should work on Firefox and Chrome and the like won't work on your iPhone and iPad. With some digging in the App Store, I did find something that seems to work, but let me not advertise here. Suffice it to say, it is useful to periodically update your ad blocking system, and it seems that free open-source blockers are the best of the bunch. Yes, and it's gotten way worse in the last year or two. Ad videos crashing the page and such. Story 7. Doing your own taxes and paying to use a privately owned software or a service when the government could totally do it for you, send you the details and ask if it's correct. I want to mention that I'm in Canada, which is similar to the United States in this regard. I use the free version of the TurboTax software and file for free, but they make the free version intentionally incomplete, so I miss out on tax savings. People in the US calculate their taxes? I mean, don't you get a letter from the government to pay them a certain amount of money? Story 8. Back to base security system monitoring. Huge scam. My smart home security systems alerts me faster than ADT, American District Telegraph Company, ever did. Biggest offenders. When you don't answer the call, they'll send out someone and will charge you a fee. And every time your system messes up, it will send false error codes to the monitoring station, which will charge you a huge fee to fix. And if you want to disconnect it, the guy I spoke to from ADT was going to charge me $250 call out plus $50 for every 15 minutes he was at my house, and the job would have taken at least an hour. They said they may need to go into the roof. No, I just called the security installation electrician and he said $50 call out and $30 for every 30 minutes he was there, but that was depending on the type of job. He was at my house for 5 minutes. Power off, remove power wires from the control box, protect the wire so it's safe to replace the cover on the control box, and it's done. He only charged $50, compared to ADT's service, which would have cost about $450. ADT hardwired into our power system without telling us what circuit they plugged it into. Basically, one flip of a switch outside and the system turns off. Story 9. All MLMs prey on insecure women, specifically army wives to give in. It's almost like a cult, guaranteeing new friends, lots of free tips, and making $20,000 a month. They're not your friends. The trips are only free if you become a top earner, and the only way to make $20,000 a month is to get at least 100 people in your team that work every single day. Most sales from those companies are from the salesperson who's buying it to sell it. They tell you that you have to buy more to sell more. It's really gross. I wanted to add something. I've been researching MLMs for years, and I want to make what I mean about insecure women clear. Insecure meaning sad, lonely, stressed, not financially stable, not guaranteed home, the military family that moves a lot. I've been to these meetings, and I've listened in on calls on how to get more recruits. I'm repeating what they have said on these calls and meetings. Sad, lonely, insecure. And I also do not mean all insecure women take the bait. I myself am extremely insecure in all ways, and I've never joined an MLM, even though I've been offered a bunch. I hate that they're so predatory toward these people. I want to make something else clear. I in no way judge the women and men and non-binary that take these opportunities. When you don't know where your next paycheck is coming from and you have mouths to feed, they make the offer so tempting. I would hope people choose a different job, but it's tempting, especially from stay-at-home moms. Turn your judgment to these disgusting companies and the people higher up in those companies that make people feel like their lives are about to become so much better. Story 10. Unpaid internships. F anyone who gives unpaid internships. People get exploited in that, and for what? Most times they don't even count. For what purpose? I get so irritated when someone posts, unpaid but you'll be given a certificate. Shut the f*** up and do the work by yourself, you lazy ass. I'm talking about unpaid internships which don't give you anything other than a certificate. There are very few companies that offer unpaid internships that actually provide some value to you. I'm not blaming normally paid internships at all. Story 11. I don't know if it's normalized, but McAfee Security Service. In my own experience with the service, it's done literally nothing for me except pop up every time I open my computer or nearly every 4 hours or so. I remember my ex-girlfriend's grandma who fell victim to the service. I tried to talk them down from it and not to pay the service, but I was much too late for any semantics. So I just took it to memory that every computer already comes with security software and any outside security software, and checked with 100% concentrated power of will, you're going to have a bad time. At least I'm convinced that the McAfee service is just a virus that makes you pay similar to some of those other viruses that get your photo via your personal webcam, lock your computer and show you a copy-pasted photo of a legal document urging you to pay a ransom. What was it? Ransomware? So I believe that even though most people may use McAfee as a computer firewall security service, it's more than likely a scam. Downvote me to hell, but at least convince me otherwise first. Story 12. Student loans. What started as an assistance program to help democratize higher education so it wasn't just for the super wealthy, has turned into a limitless source of profits for lenders and colleges, even state and public universities. Schools are now immune to market price pressure. No matter how high they raise fees, prospective students will always be able to get enough loan money to meet them. On the lender's side, they have no incentive to screen either borrowers or the schools because the loans are almost impossible to absolve. You can default, but you still owe for life. It's some of the only debts you can't discharge in bankruptcy. So every lender is happy to give a six-figure check to wide-eyed 18-year-olds who have near zero real-world or job experience and have been sold a wing and dreamed by college recruiters. The only person who bears any risk in the whole system is the students, who are told from day one of kindergarten by parents, teachers, TV, every motivational speaker that drives by, and absolutely the recruiters, that you go to college or you're a complete waste, whatever it takes to go get the degree. Story 13. The fact that so many products require you to create an account and register it just to use it, this is starting to become so widespread. Even cameras are doing that now. Pisses me off so much. I don't want to be tied to some stupid cloud. I just want to use the damn thing. Phones themselves are terrible for this too. I should not need an Apple or Google account to have a phone. I should be able to use it as a standalone device with just cell service and that's it. All this sort of BS is only so they can spy on you. Story 14. I may get heat for this, but the sneaker and shoe industry is. I mean, you don't need masses of fancy artistic-looking running shoes collected in boxes that you go and spend $1,000 to $10,000 on at a swap meet. You may as well be collecting very expensive Funko Pops. You're not going to wear them, and if you wear them, you're only going to worry about them while you wear them. The markup is insane. I know people who do this, and they're leveraging money they don't have on something that's going to sit in their shelf and do nothing. The literal Kmart brand of shoe cost over $125 a pop for a really crappily assembled shoe, but to spend in the thousands for what is essential stamp collecting is nonsensical and borderline on obsessive-compulsive. Don't get me started on women's shoes by design houses. I saw someone dish out $1,800 for Louboutins or something. What are you wearing those foot-destroying shoes for? And why would some leather and glue and plastic cost $1,800? Story 15 also doesn't generate much sympathy since it scams businesses instead of individuals. The BBB, or Better Business Bureau, is pretty much a scam. They can't collect reports on businesses that aren't members, plus merely not being accredited is supposed to be bad, but businesses have to pay for the privilege of being accredited. As far as what it actually does, nothing really. I worked for a large company at the executive response level before, responding to FCC, or Federal Communication Commission, and BBB, Better Business Bureau, complaints among other duties, and generally you just have to summarize your response of what action was taken. It's akin to sharing account notes, basically. So essentially, complaints don't do anything at all. Nothing is going to happen if you make a BBB complaint in 99% of cases. It's just yelling to get an officially posted response of the same answer you didn't like the first time. However, if you do not answer them or even refuse to pay for the useless service, then you get dinged because BBB accreditation is supposed to mean something. It's pretty much the white-collar equivalent of a protection racket. I'm sure there are very, very rare cases where legitimate complaints were resolved, but most of these could have been merely by asking for a supervisor. Filter out those cases, then you have an absolutely minuscule amount that perhaps could be considered legit, meaning I had to tell supervisors or management they did something wrong or correct any actual issue. And for that minuscule number, I'm pretty sure you could always find alternative pathways that still didn't justify extorting businesses from the privilege. I'm not sure that I can think of one single good thing that was their case in a few years' worth of handling these complaints. The only thing it is good for in the slightest is spotting complete and obvious scams. But even then, from anything I've ever seen personally at least, it's obvious scams, meaning you shouldn't need the BBB to notice. I'm talking like a computer software company that sells burn cheap copies of Windows and such, super obvious stuff. And yet for this minuscule service, they get to charge most businesses for protection or accreditation, because a great BBB rating is ingrained as good and no accreditation has successfully been ingrained as bad. Also, consumers are trained to think that a complaint hurts a business rating. It does not, at all. Not responding to a complaint is the only thing that hurts the rating, or not bothering to pay to be accredited. I mean, if you tried to start your own business on the same sort of model, I'm pretty sure you could end up with charges. Lol. The closest thing is literally a mob protection racket. You can pay us for protection from that or no accreditation, and in exchange, we won't beat you up. Declare in neon letters that you didn't pay us to be accredited. Makes no sense how highly regarded they are. Story 16. Fashion, but also just clothing in general. No pockets in female clothes, more purses get sold. Thinner layers for women, have to buy more layers. It gets marketed as being fashionable, but the clothing industry could roll out a marketing campaign for baggy, rugged clothing tomorrow and get it trending if they wanted to. Also, the clothing industry is a cesspool of child labor and human trafficking, and it has some of the highest carbon emissions and water waste of any industry on the planet, way worse than flying. One cotton t-shirt takes thousands of gallons of water to produce. Almost any synthetic fabric is a type of plastic, and you release microplastics upon washing. We have repressive cultural norms and laws regarding the necessity of wearing clothing, who come from Puritans and Victorians who thought table legs had to be covered and ankles were sexy. The idea that you should be embarrassed to be naked in front of other people is a cultural phenomenon, not an instinct. And you can look at pretty much any tropical tribe to verify this fact that humans are actually generally normal around other naked humans. Story 17. College, in particular textbooks. College is a never-ending money printer where they take none of the risk or debt or deal with the consequences. They just keep hiking up the tuition and book costs every year, no matter what. I have heard that there are degrees now where the graduates will be paying off the debt for the rest of their lives. Do your homework and find all the loopholes in the system to keep your debt as low as possible for your degree. After your first job, no one cares where you went to college, what your GPA was, or if you were on the dean's list, etc. They care about what you have done and can do in the real world. Use community college as much as you can too. Also watch out for useless degrees or qualifications. A ton of those exist, and people will happily sell them to you. Story 18. Insurance. You're forced to get it. If you're in an accident, your rates go up. If you file a claim, your rates go up. Even if you have glass coverage and it's something you paid into for years, you get to use it, and rates go up. Then your rates will go up and some more because we have had some increase in claims in your area, even though you never once made a claim and have a perfect driving record. Then because you're a smart shopper and decide to switch insurance companies because Joe Blow decided to be an idiot and now your rates are going up again, they leave a bad rating on your driver file. Not a claim, but a customer rating, which other insurance companies can see. Yet they don't report that you were a good customer and never missed a payment for 10 years. They only report what suits them. What's the point of being a good driver if Joe Blow down the block is setting your insurance rates? Story 19. Pretty much everything listed here is absolutely valid but could be consolidated into American-style capitalism. I'm sure the hackles are already rising, but that's not anti-capitalism propaganda. It's reality. Corporations are literally obligated to maximize and constantly increase profits for shareholders at any cost. That's why so many good companies suddenly aren't anymore. The revolving door between large corporate interests, banks and government, the think tanks and super PACs, political action committees, the privatization push, the removal of regulations, the entire purpose is furthering profit and consolidating power to ensure that cycle is maintained. Important scientific and medical knowledge, large amounts of land, etc., were all largely held in common until the last century. Private companies were licensed to utilize them or service them, and those licenses could be revoked where they're not serving the public good or interest or paying back in for non-public uses. That's not communism or even socialism as it's now defined. It was a normal part of American life. A durable goods factory can only sell so many of the same thing per year unless they can convince you Broom 2.0 is far superior to Broom 1.0. That's marketing. Maybe they have to start making other things, consolidation. When the goal changes to ever-growing profits rather than sustainability, the competition must be absorbed or eliminated. The price goes up and costs have to decrease. When you can't pay fewer workers any less or treat them any more poorly, you move production overseas. The price continues to rise, and marketing becomes more aggressive, but it's not enough. Who needs a new everything every year? Enter proprietary equipment and planned obsolescence. You can't have the same car for 25 years without spending a fortune to replace cheaper parts made not to last. Your laptop can't be upgraded, and the phone you bought 2 years ago won't work properly on the locked carrier system. Don't worry, no need to buy that new phone. Why not lease it at a higher price until it's obsolete? Then we'll take it back and sell it to another market when you're forced to start a new lease. You can save $5 a month by allowing us to auto-bill a randomized amount to your credit card each month, rent access to your video games and media, and unlock once basic features and functions of your devices by upgrading. It only works with our proprietary accessories. Subscribe to these essential apps, allow us to send you notifications, give us access to automatically upgrade, grant us permission to collect and share data. With so many things running from the cloud, you're going to need that extra memory. Better get it now. Apple's soldering it in so you can do it later. They normalized the idea that everything is temporary and disposable. Constant gross consumerism, privatization, consolidation, and open abuse of the public because they simply aren't alternatives that feel feasible or reasonable in modern life. Who wants to argue that same or next day delivery of practically anything isn't a luxury for the common man? Who cares if it's ceding control of most supply chains to one consistently abused corporation, essentially one person? It's just the way it is. Greed is good. If we all just work harder, we'll eventually have easier access to modern necessities, more choices and flexibility. We'll graduate to a higher class that takes less abuse and has more control, even though there's less and less evidence to support that ideology. It's neither breaking news and unlikely to make the mainstream news because they're beholden to the same system, have to follow that Fox model, get that sweet supplement money. Most politicians are only in their position because of that money to protect and further that corrupted system while maintaining that everything is fine. So it's hard to see a way out, but realizing that there's nothing normal about it, being conscious of the constant manipulation for profit most of us were born into, is at least a first step.